Okay, this took me a very long time to do because not only do I have to organize each and every player based off of how good they are at their respective heights, but I also have to rank how good a player is at a specific position over another. So let me know in the comment section down below if you would like me to rank each player based by position and based on their height in a future video, because there's a lot of incredible players that I had to omit in this video and it absolutely killed me. Now, bear in mind, guys, in order to make things fair, I'm going to do my best to list one player that plays on the offensive side of the ball and one player that plays on the defensive side of the ball. And not every height has a player for each side of the ball. For example, I couldn't find any player in the NFL that was really, really good in today's NFL that was 5'6". And speaking about being 5'6", let's start with our first player, who is the absolute best player whose height is 5'6", and that's Tariq Cohen. Now, originally I was going to put Darren Sproles here, but since Darren Sproles decided to retire, I figured I'd make him an honorable mention. Of course, you guys know Darren Sproles is one of the best stories in NFL history. He is 5'6", but he has had an incredibly long NFL career, and he plays a position that has the shortest career expectancy at running back. So if you're trying to figure out how to last long in football, you got to look at Darren Sproles' story, because they asked him in an interview, what was your secret for having such a long NFL career? And Darren Sproles' answer was simply try to get tackled as little as possible. Now, Darren Sproles just recently ended his career with the Philadelphia Eagles, but he had stints with the New Orleans Saints and the San Diego Chargers. He's won 2 Super Bowls in his career, and in my opinion, I believe he's an NFL Hall of Famer. Let me know in the comment section if you agree with that. But Tariq Cohen currently plays a very similar brand of football to Darren Sproles. This guy is also a running back that's a speed demon that's considered to be a gadget player for the Chicago Bears. Tariq Cohen could not only run the ball very well, but he's actually a phenomenal pass-catching running back as well. And we didn't really find anything for the defensive side of the ball here, so that's it for 5'6". Now, before we get to 5'7", guys, if you are new to my channel and you like football content, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and also follow us on Instagram at Mikerophone, and make sure you turn on notifications as well. When we get to 1,000 Instagram followers, I'm going to be giving away a signed NFL Legends jersey of your choice, so make sure that you're followed on Instagram at Mikerophone. At 5'7", we have Nicole Roby Coleman, and if you guys don't know who this guy is, let me remind you. You remember that one play? I'm not sure if New Orleans Saints fans would remember this, but you remember that one play in the NFC Championship last year against the Los Angeles Rams? You know, the play that resulted in pass interferences being reviewable this year? Well, yeah, Nicole Roby Coleman was the player that laid that hit that was supposed to be pass interference, but ended up not being pass interference, that sent the Los Angeles Rams to the Super Bowl. That's probably his most famous moment. But prior to this, the 5'7" cornerback was known for being a very, very good 5'7" corner. He had stints with the Buffalo Bills after being undrafted in 2013. Throughout his career, he's had 47 pass deflections, 6 interceptions, 2 defensive touchdowns, and 287 total tackles. But yeah, unfortunately for Nicole Roby Coleman, he's forever going to be most famous for this one hit against the New Orleans Saints. And of course, we don't have anything for the offensive side of the ball. For some reason, running backs skip over from 5'6" to 5'8". And the next player at 5'8" even is a stretch. I had trouble finding a player to rank here at 5'8", so I actually had to dig and find a player that technically isn't retired, but is technically a free agent, but he might not get signed for a while ever again. And that's CJ Anderson. And CJ Anderson's had a very solid career. And if you ask me, I feel like he deserves one more season. The last time we saw him was a year ago for the Los Angeles Rams. He did sign briefly with the Detroit Lions last year in April of 2019, but he was released on September of 2019. But prior to that, he was doing work for the Rams in the NFL playoffs last year. He averaged 4.1 yards per carry and 5.7 yards per reception. He's only recorded one season where he rushed for over 1,000 yards, and that was his final season with the Denver Broncos in 2017. And he's a very serviceable power running back. But if you're asking me, for a guy that was undrafted in 2013, CJ Anderson has put together a very serviceable NFL career. He currently has 3,497 rushing yards, averaged 4.5 yards per carry, and has 22 rushing touchdowns to go with 108 receptions, 900 receiving yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns. And at the 5'9" position, this is the last time we're going to have only one player, and it's only for the offensive side of the ball. We have Mark Ingram as the best 5'9" player in the entire NFL. Mark Ingram didn't have the greatest NFL career to start out. He had a great, phenomenal NCAA career because he was able to win the Heisman Trophy with the Crimson Tide. But as his career progressed forward, Mark Ingram got better and better. He was a first-round pick in the 2011 NFL Draft, but he didn't really see his first Pro Bowl until the 2014 NFL season after having a 964-yard rushing season to go with 145-yard receiving. The year after, he regressed a little bit in 2015, but in 2016, he was able to post his first 1,000-yard rushing season to go with 320 receiving yards. And then in 2017, he followed that up with a 1,100-yard rushing season to go with 400 receiving yards. The year after, he dealt with some injury issues, and this past year, he signed with the Baltimore Ravens and also posted a 1,000-yard rushing season. Mark Ingram is currently 30 years old, so it's going to be very interesting to see how his career is going to progress forward. Is he going to trend in the direction that Darren Sproles possibly did and prolong his career, or is he going to be extinct at the ripe running back age of 30? And here we go, 5'10". We're finally going to get some defensive players up in here, but we're going to start with the offensive player, and that is Alvin Kamara, a former teammate of Mark Ingram. For those of you guys that don't know who Alvin Kamara is, he's only 24 years old, and he was a third-round pick in the 2017 NFL Draft. He is one of the main components that makes the triplets of Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, and himself so terrifying on the New Orleans Saints. When all three of these players are clicking, they're absolutely unstoppable. Now, this past season, he has regressed a little bit, but he's had some issues with injuries, but he was able to rush for 800 yards for an average of 4.7 yards per carry to go with 533 yards receiving. Alvin Kamara is definitely one of the more difficult players to tackle in the NFL, and without a doubt, at the age of 24, he's a player that you should be seeing on this list fairly consistently because he does remind me of a prime Darren Sproles. On the defensive side of the ball, we have Chris Harris Jr., a player that's a former Super Bowl champion, a 4-time Pro Bowler, a first-team All-Pro, and a 2-time second-team All-Pro. He's had 20 interceptions throughout his career. He's had 90 pass deflections throughout his career, 6 forced fumbles, and 4 defensive touchdowns for the Denver Broncos. He's currently 30 years old, so there's rumors that he might leave the Denver Broncos for a chance to win another Super Bowl. But without a doubt, when he's healthy, he is one of the best players on the defensive side of the ball in the entire NFL. Now, for 5'11", we had a lot of options for 5'11". We could have went Odell Beckham Jr. here if we wanted to, but we decided that you have to go with Russell Wilson, one of the faces of the NFL and a player that's an absolute cheat code with his ability to scramble and extend plays. Russell Wilson is always a threat to get into the playoffs and to be disruptive once he makes it into the playoffs. No matter what pieces are around Russ, he is always able to put together a respectable regular season record and is incredible at putting the Seattle Seahawks on his back. He was a third-round pick in 2012, and he's already a Super Bowl champion with 7 Pro Bowls in his NFL career. He recently signed a 4-year, $140 million contract extension to remain with the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seahawks have boasted a winning record every single year that he was at the helm. This past season, he's thrown for over 4,000 yards with a 66% completion percentage and 31 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. To give you an idea of how good Russell Wilson is, he's only thrown 68 interceptions to 227 touchdowns. He's almost rushed for 4,000 yards in his entire NFL career and 19 touchdowns. And on the defensive side of the ball, we have one of the more exciting NFL free agents this year, and that's Darius Slay, a player that is incredible at matching up with opponents' wide receivers and has been able to lock down players such as Amari Cooper this past year. When Darius Slay is locked in, he is one of the best cornerbacks in the entire NFL. He's currently 29 years old. He currently has 3 Pro Bowl selections from 2017 all the way to this past year and was a first-team All-Pro in 2017. At the time of this video, he has 19 interceptions to go with 347 tackles. The best player that's 6 foot tall on the offensive side of the ball is without a doubt Drew Brees. I don't care what his age is. This is a guy that consistently is getting snubbed for MVP. Drew Brees is one of my favorite stories in the entire NFL. He is the first undersized quarterback to truly prove that size doesn't matter at the QB position, has an incredibly accurate deep ball, and has made it to the Pro Bowl 13 times, won Super Bowl champion and Super Bowl MVP. MVP when he faced against the Indianapolis Colts in 2009. He was a two-time Heisman Trophy finalist when he was in Purdue, and he currently holds the NFL record for most career passing yards, most career pass completions, most career touchdown passes, which, if you're wondering, he's thrown 547 touchdowns to 237 interceptions. And guess what, Saints fans? He is coming back for one more year. On the defensive side of the ball, we have one of the most disruptive linebackers in NFL history and the final member of the Legion of Boom, if you even consider him a member of the Legion of Boom. I tend to consider every player that was on the Seattle Seahawks defense in 2013-2012 as a member of the LOB, but that's Bobby Wagner. And from 2014 to this past year, Bobby Wagner was named a Pro Bowler, and for 5 of those 6 seasons, he was named a first-team All-Pro, a 5-time first-team All-Pro. He's had over 1,075 tackles in his career. He's only 29 years old, by the way. 19 and a half sacks, 10 interceptions, 5 forced fumbles, and 3 defensive touchdowns. He is without a doubt a top 10 defensive player in the NFL today, and what's incredible is he was only a second-round pick. At 6'1", the best player on the offensive side of the ball is DeAndre Hopkins, who is also considered to be the best wide receiver in the NFL. If you disagree with me, let me know who is the best wide receiver in the NFL, and has been dominating the NFL since 2013. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time first-team All-Pro, and led the league in touchdowns in 2017. He currently has 8,600 receiving yards to go with 632 receptions and 54 touchdowns. And on the defensive side of the ball, we have a player that is widely considered to be the best defensive player in all of the NFL, and that is Aaron Donald for the Los Angeles Rams. Aaron Donald has been a 6-time Pro Bowler, a 5-time first-team All-Pro, and led the NFL in sacks in 2018. And bear in mind, the reason why that's significant is because he's a defensive tackle. Typically, he's getting the double teams, and he is the focal point of that defensive line, and he typically beats those double teams in order to get sacks. This past season, he had 12 and a half sacks and 20 tackles for a loss. Aaron Donald is without a doubt one of the most dominant players in the NFL, and he is the reason why the Los Angeles Rams pass rush is so feared. At 6'2", and I think this is my favorite height because I feel like both of these players are so underrated. The first one is the player that I took a risk on in fantasy. He was a 3rd-round pick in 2017, and that's Chris Godwin. And if you guys know what I'm talking about for fantasy, coming into this season, everybody predicted a Chris Godwin breakout season, and boy, were they right. Chris Godwin posted a 1,333-yard season in Bruce Arians' system with 9 touchdowns and 86 receptions. He hasn't decorated his career very much because he is a first-time Pro Bowler this year, but he's only 24 years old. He was also a 2nd-team All-Pro this year. On the defensive side of the ball, we have Darius Leonard for the Indianapolis Colts, and he is a huge reason why the Indianapolis Colts are considered to be a very underrated defense. Honestly, I think it's the defense that makes the Indianapolis Colts this year. It's kind of the reason why I was so heartbroken by Andrew Luck retiring, because I figured this was the time that they would really compete for Super Bowls. Darius Leonard is only 24 years old. He already has 7 interceptions, 6 forced fumbles, 12 sacks. He has only 1 Pro Bowl and 1 first-team All-Pro to his name, and his only Pro Bowl was this year, but he led the NFL in tackles last year and was also named NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year in the year that he led the NFL in tackles. At 6'3", this is a guy that needs no introduction, and that's Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, without a doubt, is the face of the NFL, especially after winning the Super Bowl this year. He took the league by storm in his first year with all these crazy no-look passes and these sidearm passes. He has an incredible arm that could throw for almost 70 yards, and the combination of him and Andy Reid is so good for the NFL. They provide this entertaining brand of high-octane football, and I look forward to seeing Patrick Mahomes dominate for many years down the line. On the defensive side of the ball, we have Khalil Mack, a player that bursted onto the scene after being traded by the Oakland Raiders to the Chicago Bears. He was already really good on the Raiders, but when he got to the Chicago Bears, he was on a new level of incredible, because in 2018, this guy recorded 12 and a half sacks, had 6 forced fumbles, had 1 interception, but unfortunately he wasn't really able to follow that up so much this year. Maybe it's because he either took a step back because of his age, or maybe because more offenses are keying in on him. He's a number 5 overall pick from 2014, a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time first-team All-Pro, and has 61.5 sacks to go 20 forced fumbles, 7 fumble recoveries, and 2 interceptions, and 2 defensive touchdowns in his career. At 6'4", we have Julio Jones from the Atlanta Falcons. You already know how great this guy is, man. One of the most dominant players in NFL history, is a 7-time Pro Bowler, a 2-time first-team All-Pro. It's been very unfortunate because lately the Falcons haven't been as competitive, but he has 797 receptions to go with 12,125 receiving yards and 15.2 yards per reception to go with 57 receiving touchdowns. I really hope he gets to the Super Bowl one more time, man. He really balled out and has been balling out since the moment he's been in the NFL. He's always had over 1,000 yards receiving for every year except 2 years, which were hampered by injury, and the other being his rookie season. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, we have one of the best trash talkers in NFL history, and that's Richard Sherman. This is a guy who I respect because of how long he's been doing it. He's been very productive at a very high level for the majority of the decade, playing in the NFL for his first year in 2011 after being a 5th-round pick. In 2018, a lot of people wrote this guy off because of an Achilles tear, but he was able to sign with the San Francisco 49ers and establish the tone on defense and contributed to a winning defensive culture for the 49ers. He made it back to the Super Bowl. However, he's only 1 for 3 in Super Bowls. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler, including this past year, and a 3-time first-team All-Pro. He's had 35 interceptions in his career to go with 3 defensive touchdowns. At 6'5", we have Tyron Smith on the offensive side of the ball, who is without a doubt the best left tackle in the entire league, if you've been asking me. He's been the best left tackle for the last decade and was drafted and is a huge reason why the Dallas Cowboys offensive line is so feared. In fact, Tyron Smith is so good that the Cowboys built the offensive line around him. On the defensive side of the ball, we have JJ Watt, a player that whenever he's healthy is absolutely terrorizing opposing offensive lines and opposing offenses, but that's his biggest Achilles heel. JJ Watt has always had trouble staying on the field. And by the way, I made a great video comparing JJ Watt to his brothers. If you guys want to go check that out, I'll leave a link in the description down below. At 6'6", we have Lane Johnson on the offensive side of the ball, the 30-year-old right tackle of the Philadelphia Eagles. If you ask me, the greatest right tackle in the NFL for the greater part of the last decade. And on the defensive side of the ball, unfortunately, I really hate to say this, but people mainly recognize this guy more for one incident that kind of blew his fingers off as opposed to his great on-field ability, and that's Jason Pierre-Paul, a player that had 16.5 sacks in his second year in the NFL, and ever since then he's kind of regressed. In 2014 he had 12.5 sacks again, and in 2018 he had 12.5 sacks for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's a huge component of the new Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive line that features Shaq Barrett in himself, but one has to wonder how much blowing off his fingers in that firework incident has affected his career. At 6'7", this is a player that clearly is here because I couldn't find any other options, but we're going to go with Jimmy Graham, a player that really did well in the NFL during his first stint with the New Orleans Saints, but ever since then, things have really slowed down for Jimmy Graham, and he hasn't really been that same productive player since leaving New Orleans. He had 1 good season for Seattle, and the past 2 years, he hasn't been really that good for the Green Bay Packers. He's had 2 1,000-yard receiving seasons, and he's a 5-time All-Pro, a first-team All-Pro, and led the NFL in receiving touchdowns in 2013. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, we have DeForest Buckner, a player that is a huge part of the San Francisco 49ers rushing attack. He was a 7th overall pick in the 2016 NFL Draft. However, he's only been to the Pro Bowl once in 2018 and currently has 28.5 sacks to go with 3 forced fumbles, has 1 defensive touchdown. Now, at 6'8" on the offensive side of the ball, we have Nate Solder, who was known for his time with the New England Patriots as a left tackle, recently signed with the New York Giants to try to fortify that offensive line. A phenomenally consistent offensive tackle that was able to win 2 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots, but hasn't had much single-player success. All in all, he has had a very successful career for himself and is still in the league today. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, this is a player I have tremendous respect for because he has been doing this for the longest time, has been dominating for the longest time, and that's Calais Campbell. This is a guy that's been playing in the NFL since 2000. 2008. And he is still going strong. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler, a first-team All-Pro, a 1-time first-team All-Pro, and a 2-time second-team All-Pro. Has had 88 sacks, 14 forced fumbles, 11 fumble recoveries, and 3 defensive touchdowns throughout his career, and is an absolute monster. And at 6'9", the final player and the only player we have at 6'9" is an offensive player by the name of Alejandro Villanueva. He is a player that is currently the offensive tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He went undrafted in 2010 and is a 2-time Pro Bowler in 2017 and 2018. And that completes this gigantic list. Let me know if I left any guy out, guys. I'm your boy Microphone, and I'll catch you guys in the next upload.